So, Chapter 12 of Two Blue Vortex is officially out, and while that's huge for the progression of the plot, it's even bigger for the progression of a couple of my theories. See, because while I fully understand it's important for this plot to move forward, and for Boruto to keep getting stronger, and for Sarada to develop her character arc and her relationship with Hidari, genuinely when it comes down to it, usually when I'm reading a new chapter of Two Blue Vortex, the first thing on my mind is, was I correct? And this week I was presented with a big old resounding yes, kind of. I was presented with a big old resounding solidly maybe. Because, well, a lot happened in Chapter 12 of Two Blue Vortex, which you can catch up on if you watch the last video I posted on this page. There were 3 or 4 things that happened over the course of the chapter that either solidified existing theories or sparked entirely new ones. And thus, today I want to talk about one of the events that happened in Chapter 12 that helped solidified a long-standing theory I've had on this page. And that is that the reason that Boruto is as strong as he currently is because he's got more teachers than even we realize. And Kishimoto's been trying to show us that for a long while. See, basically, since the beginning of Two Blue Vortex, every single chapter, it seems as though Boruto uses some kind of new jutsu. And while some of those jutsu, like the Rasengan Uzuhiko, are completely novel and never before seen in the story, basically every other jutsu that Boruto has used since the beginning of Two Blue Vortex, outside of Rasengan Uzuhiko, belongs to somebody else. And while the concept of multiple people using the same jutsu is definitely not unheard of in the Naruto universe, the jutsus that Boruto has been seen using since the beginning of Two Blue Vortex draw their roots back to a very suspicious cast of characters. See, whether it's Purple Lightning, Flying Raijin, or Breakthrough, all 3 of these jutsu tie their roots back to some of the strongest ninjas in existence. Let's get into all that. Today we're going to talk about our favorite recurring sponsor to the page, BetterHelp. Listen, I put myself under a lot of stress. As it currently stands, I'm person numero uno on 4 separate YouTube pages, which means a lot of my day is dedicated to working, which means a lot of my mental health is dedicated to work. Now, this isn't the world's greatest setup for my brain. This means I often attribute the majority of my feeling of self-worth to how well work is going across these 4 separate channels. And while for a long time I would let myself dictate how much I was worth based off how well my videos were doing, fortunately with the help of BetterHelp and the therapist I've been connected to, I've found positive ways to reinforce my self-worth that have nothing to do with work. See, because that's exactly what BetterHelp is meant to do. Connect you with a licensed therapist, usually in less than 48 hours. And that licensed therapist is going to have experience listening to people like you. Because at the beginning of your BetterHelp journey, all you have to do is fill out a questionnaire that helps BetterHelp better establish a connection between you and a therapist who's trained to listen to people like you and give you unbiased advice. And staying in touch with that therapist is as easy as it gets, as you can stay in touch with your therapist over the phone, video call, or even just messages. Whatever makes you comfortable. So what are you waiting for? Let BetterHelp connect you with a therapist tailored to your needs, all from the comfort of your home. So go to betterhelp.com/NCHammer, click the link in my description, or use code NCHammer at checkout to enjoy a special discount during your first month. So what are you waiting for? It's time we start getting those mental reps in. And while the people who created and used Flying Raijin at a high level are all dead, for the other 2 jutsus that Boruto has been seen using, Purple Lightning and Breakthrough, not only are the creators of those jutsus still alive, but they're also unaccounted for. And thus, since there's been a creeping suspicion in the back of my head ever since I saw Boruto use Flying Raijin and asked the question, how'd he learn that? I believe the events of Chapter 12, and specifically Boruto using Breakthrough on Hidari, are Kishimoto boldly showing us exactly who's been training Boruto during the time skip. See, because, well, yes, we understand that Boruto has been with Kashin Koji, I'd venture to say his team is a bit bigger than that. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, because today we're talking Boruto's teachers revealed. But before we get to revealing anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you love the idea of me breaking down some of your other favorite manga, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime and manga. Or if you want to see me try to bring real-life challenges to the anime world, go ahead and follow my brand new page that I created with Chris Barnett, Stephen He, and Danny Mata called Anime IRL. Or if you just want to hear me talk about anime and manga, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Talkers Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime and manga this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. By the way, I understand that the lighting scheme is different, and I'm sorry if that's caught any of you off guard. Up until this point, I have genuinely, and I wish I was kidding about this, been using lights from Temu. And today, finally, my good old $3 lights burnt out. I have an expensive ring light that I've been using to light up the room. That's why the room seems so dark, because it's now in front of me. But I feel like this makes me look better. I do need to figure out something to light up the back of this room, though, because The lights are on, but they look off. But when you're the prettiest anime YouTuber on the market, you gotta make sure you're well lit. So, chapter 12, what a roller coaster. This chapter had everything. It had Hidari being defeated, it had the Soul Thorn being revealed, it had Naruto getting trumped, and so much more. However, amongst all of this chaos, one minor detail is being somewhat ignored, and that's the fact that in the opening bout of Boruto and Hidari's battle, in order to create distance between Hidari and himself, Boruto hits Hidari with a wind style breakthrough. Now, this is a rare jutsu. In fact, there's only 4 people in both Naruto and Boruto who have ever been seen using this jutsu. And those people are Kokage. You guys know Kokage, right? Kokage, Yanagikage. Come on, guys, stop fooling around. You guys know Kokage. He's like the most important. You don't know Kokage. Well, if you don't know Kokage, I mean, fake fan. Kokage is a Chunin in Naruto who has Kage tattooed on his face. He was one of the people who helped Kakashi in his battle against the Devapath, who was immediately defeated by Shinra Tensei. You don't remember Kokage? I can't believe you guys. Well, he's one of the people who's able to use Breakthrough alongside Gaara, Mitsuki, and most importantly, the creator of the jutsu, Orochimaru. Well, they may not really be the creator of this jutsu because Shukaku's able to use this jutsu and Shukaku's older than Orochimaru, but the most notable user of Breakthrough is Orochimaru. And for those of you who have never played Naruto to Boruto Shinobi Strikers, you probably wouldn't know that. See, because while Orochimaru does use Breakthrough a couple of times in the anime and the manga, it's definitely not their iconic move. However, in NTBSS, it is one of the 2 jutsu that Orochimaru gets to use. And it's so good. And thus Boruto in chapter 12 using Breakthrough, even though we've never seen him use it before, was slightly confusing. See, because here's the thing. Some of you might be saying to yourself right now, oh, but Boruto's been using Wind Release for forever. And you'd be right. Boruto is 100% Naruto's son. Some of the first ninjutsu we actually ever see Boruto use are Wind Release ninjutsu, like Boruto's Wind Release Gale Palm, which we know Boruto uses after creating 2 shadow clones that both use Gale Palm on his feet to rocket him forward. However, Gale Palm and Breakthrough are very different jutsu. However, rather interestingly, what usually separates Gale Palm and Breakthrough is the fact that Gale Palm is channeled through your palm, while Breakthrough is channeled through your stomach and your mouth. But rather interestingly, Boruto channels his Breakthrough through his hand. But fortunately for those of you saying, oh, then it must be a mistranslation, the theory's dead in the water, this isn't the first time that a Breakthrough has been used with somebody's hands. In fact, in chapter 19 of Boruto, Mitsuki uses Breakthrough from his hand, and thus it's as easy to use Breakthrough from your mouth as it is from your hand. So, more likely than not, it's not a mistranslation. But Boruto in this circumstance could have very easily used Gale Palm. In fact, given the context of the situation and the fact that Boruto was channeling Wind Release from his palm, Gale Palm would have made a lot more sense. I mean, after all, it's a jutsu that Boruto's known for. He'd used it for 80 chapters. To see it now used in Two Blue Vortex at a way higher level because Boruto's way stronger would have been interesting. And yet, Boruto uses Breakthrough. But why? Because Breakthrough is stronger than Gale Palm? I mean, yeah. Maybe, but that's more because of the people who have used Breakthrough comparatively to the people who have used Gale Palm. See, no jutsu is inherently weak or strong. While some jutsu are incredibly hard to pull off and therefore start off at the lowest level of activation pretty strong, pretty much any and all jutsu can be augmented depending on the user to make them as strong as any other jutsu. The best example for this is the Uchiha Fireball jutsu. See, in order to even be considered an Uchiha ninja, you have to master the Uchiha Fireball, or the Great Fireball technique. Now, obviously, your initiation happens the second you're able to pull off this Great Fireball technique. But as you grow older and get stronger, your fireball only gets hotter and larger. And the same could genuinely be said of any elemental released ninjutsu. Kisame wasn't always able to cover entire battlefields in water. That came with time. And the same could be said for things like Gale Palm. While sure in part 1 of Boruto, Gale Palm was probably weaker than Breakthrough, that's really only because Mitsuki was using Breakthrough and Boruto was using Gale Palm. And Mitsuki, for large parts of part 1 of Boruto, was stronger than Boruto. And thus there's really no reason for Boruto to all of a sudden make a switch from Gale Palm to Breakthrough, as he could have just trumped up his Gale Palm. Unless, of course, Kishimoto was trying to tell us something. And here's the thing. This isn't the only time we've seen this exact situation play out with Boruto in Two Blue Vortex. See, Boruto in his battle against Mitsuki used Purple Lightning, specifically to electrify Sasuke's katana to cut through Mitsuki's chakra snakes. Now, this event falls into the exact same categorization as Boruto using Breakthrough instead of Gale Palm, because Boruto was also known in Part 1 to be an incredibly proficient lightning style user. And it was because of his proficiencies with lightning style that he was able to create the Vanishing Rasengan and his move that's specific to him, Lightning Release Thunderclap Arrow. And thus it's always been established that even since the beginning of Boruto, that Boruto is incredibly well versed in both Wind Release and Lightning Release. And that in Part 1 of Boruto, he had his own derived jutsus for both of those elemental releases. And thus when he shows up in Two Blue Vortex using other people's Wind and Lightning Release jutsus, even though we've never seen him use those jutsus in Part 1 of Boruto, it seems to imply that he learned those jutsus from someone else, possibly the people who use them. See, because technically, while I will admit, Boruto using Purple Lightning in the battle against Mitsuki makes more sense than him using Breakthrough in the battle against Hidari, on account of the fact that we have no idea whether or not Thunderclap Arrow would be able to electrify a katana like Purple Lightning can, because after all, Purple Lightning is just Chidori without the tunnel vision effects, and Chidori is often used to electrify katanas and Senbon and Shuriken, and therefore, if hypothetically Sasuke wanted to teach Boruto to fight as similarly to him as possible, it would make sense that he would teach him a Chidori replacement in the form of Purple Lightning so that he would be able to electrify weapons or even just strike with a handful of electricity. However, we don't necessarily know as to whether or not Sasuke knows how to use Purple Lightning. While there is a fair amount of possibility that Sasuke watched Kakashi use Purple Lightning one time and therefore was able to replicate it because of his Sharingan, we can't know that for certain. On top of that, when you bring up this point, people will point out the fact that in Boruto's unofficial data book entry, there is no official Boruto data book. There are unofficial data book entries for the Konoha 8 and Sasuke and Naruto in the Boruto timeline, but there is no official Boruto data book. It doesn't exist. Or if it does, you guys are way better at finding it than I am. But in this unofficial data book from Part 1 of Boruto, it states that Part 1 Boruto was able to use Purple Lightning. And thus people, whenever you say that Boruto learned Purple Lightning during the time skip, usually say, no, he knew it before the time skip. However, there's evidence to go directly against that claim. See, Boruto does use Purple Lightning before the time skip. However, he has to use it with the Shinobi Gauntlet. Now, of course, the Shinobi Gauntlet only comes into play before the Chunin exams, or I guess during the Chunin exams, so pre-Momoshiki, but that does give us a hard timeline to confirm to us that Boruto, during the Chunin exams, and presumably during the fight against Momoshiki, didn't know how to use Purple Lightning. And in no time between the killing of Momoshiki and the end of Part 1, do we ever see Boruto training in Lightning Release, and more specifically, Purple Lightning. And thus I believe that it's highly likely in this unofficial data book that the reason that Boruto was given the Purple Lightning Jutsu as one of his usable ninjutsu is because he used it in the Chunin exams through the medium of the Shinobi Gauntlet. And I don't think that's all that crazy when you consider the fact that in that very same unofficial data book, Boruto's intelligence is ranked at a 90, while Kawaki's is ranked at a 130, Mitsuki's is ranked at a 165, Sarada's is ranked at a 145, Shikadai's is ranked at a 180, and even Inajin clocks in at a firm 100. You wanna know who else clocks in at a firm 100? Adult Sasuke, which means apparently Sarada, Mitsuki, Kawaki, Shikadai, Inajin, and Sumire are smarter than adult Sasuke. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you not to take the data books too seriously even when they're official. When they're unofficial, they're basically nothing. So it seems somewhat fairly obvious, to me at least, that Boruto learned Purple Lightning during the time skip. But Breakthrough and Purple Lightning weren't the only new jutsu that Boruto came back to Konoha with. No, because the first jutsu we ever see Boruto use in Two Blue Vortex is Flying Raijin, when he uses it to teleport directly onto Code's face. But of all the three new jutsu we've seen Boruto use in Two Blue Vortex, this one's the most perplexing. I mean, so far as we know, every single user of Flying Raijin is dead and gone. I mean, Tobirama was the creator of Flying Raijin, but he's been dead for decades, and Minato was the only other person we'd ever seen use it, and he's been dead for well, I guess also decades. Outside of them, the only other people who have ever scratched the surface of Flying Raijin were the Hokage guards, who are able to use a squadron version of the Flying Raijin where they all link hands and teleport themselves and anybody in between them as they're all linked together to some other destination. This was specifically taught to the Hokage's guards by Minato so that they could get to the Hokage whenever they needed to, and get the Hokage out of dangerous situations when it became appropriate. However, I think I can say for certain that none of the Hokage's guards were following Boruto outside of Konoha to help him learn Flying Raijin. And thus the question becomes, where did Boruto learn Flying Raijin? Well, when we first saw Boruto use Flying Raijin, a couple of the popular theories were that Kashin Koji, who possibly has the memories of Jiraiya, or at least the technical knowledge of Jiraiya, was able to tell Boruto how Minato was able to use Flying Raijin in hopes that Boruto would be able to reverse engineer it, or that in some way or another, Boruto was able to train with Minato, which people either tied to time travel or Edo Tensei. And now, while time travel has been pretty much all but eliminated as a possibility, nothing's really happened to make me say that, oh, time travel didn't happen, but it just doesn't seem likely. Technically, two of those theories stand as good a chance, if not a better chance after the events of Chapter 12, of possibly being true. See, we've seen over the course of Two Blue Vortex that Kashin Koji is heavily involved in Boruto using Flying Raijin. See, we understand, kind of, that Boruto's Flying Raijin usage is a lot weaker than Minato's, and even Tobirama's. Yes, Boruto is the first person we've ever seen use Flying Raijin to jump across the dimension. That is very impressive. However, based off everything we've seen up until this point in Two Blue Vortex, it appears as though Boruto can't place seals on humans or living things, and thus Boruto only has the ability to place Flying Raijin seals on inanimate objects, like his sword, which he had to thrust out from his hips when Mitsuki wrapped him up with snakes so he could jump to it, or a shuriken that he throws into the neck of a claw grime like he did in Chapter 12, or most commonly, shapes held by toads that are spread about in different locations so that Boruto can strategically jump to them. Now, in order to coordinate where Boruto is going to be jumping to, he's often talking with Kashin Koji through the medium of a toad that Boruto keeps on him, like a walkie-talkie. And thus the level of participation that Kashin Koji seems to have in all things Flying Raijin seems to make me believe at least that Kashin Koji was the person who taught him Flying Raijin. But there is still the rather mysterious thing that Boruto said the first time he was trying to use Flying Raijin in Two Blue Vortex by honing in on Code's location across dimensions. And that was that he's not good at using this jutsu like his grandfather. Now, well, obviously Boruto could have just heard how incredible his grandfather was with Flying Raijin from somebody like Kashin Koji or Sasuke or even Naruto. This statement seems to imply that he has firsthand experience seeing how incredibly talented Minato is. And thus there's also still the possibility that Boruto trained with an Edo Tensei version of Minato. And ironically, that explanation of how Boruto got Flying Raijin is also only bolstered by Chapter 12's events. See, because Boruto using Breakthrough as opposed to Gale Palm seems to imply that in some way or another he's been tied to, over the course of the time skip, to somebody who uses Breakthrough. And since we fully know that that person wasn't Mitsuki, the only person out of Kokage who may or may not still be alive, that leaves on the list of people who use Breakthrough is Orochimaru. And while Boruto simply using Breakthrough wouldn't be enough for me to get my soapbox out, stand on it with my bell, and scream out to the town square that Boruto's been with Orochimaru these last 2 years, Boruto and Kashin Koji's hideout is in one of Orochimaru's lairs. It's not up for debate. It's even corroborated once again in Chapter 12, where we get to see Kashin Koji explaining what a soul thorn is, and we can once again clearly see that he is inside of some kind of scaly tunnel. And thus, with the combined evidence of Boruto and Kashin Koji's hideout existing in one of Orochimaru's lairs, be they active or not, and Boruto using Breakthrough in Chapter 12, it seems all but confirmed to me that Boruto and Kashin Koji are working with Orochimaru, which does technically bolster the argument that Boruto trained with his grandfather in an Edo Tensei form. Because here's the thing, while how Boruto and Kashin Koji ended up with Orochimaru is somewhat hazy, there are many possible paths that could explain how they got there, and most of them run through Sasuke. See, I think Sasuke is of the understanding that even if he became a rogue ninja again, he could always fall back onto Orochimaru. I mean, after all, Orochimaru would be dead if not for Sasuke. I mean, he also would be alive if not for Sasuke, but you get it. On top of this, Sasuke and Boruto have a way that they can help Orochimaru realize that their memories have been altered, as they could literally just tell Orochimaru, who's as good at Edo Tensei as literally anybody else on Earth, to simply Edo Tensei Naruto back, and if he doesn't pop up, he's not dead. In worst case scenario, if he does pop up, we can ask him how he died. And thus upon Orochimaru, who definitely has some of Naruto's cells, I mean, what are we talking about here? Effectively fails to pull off an Ender Tensei of Naruto, it's confirmed to Orochimaru that Naruto's soul is not in the Pure Lands, where it would be if Boruto were to kill him. And thus at that point, either Boruto and Sasuke or Kashin Koji and Boruto would begin to work with Orochimaru, who has a lot of reasons to be interested in Boruto. Like the fact that if Boruto is hanging out in Orochimaru's lair, Orochimaru gets to fiddle with his karma marking, which could possibly explain the instability that Boruto is currently going through with said karma marking, as Orochimaru could be trying to find a way to break down or separate Boruto from said karma marking. But Nick, if Boruto is truly training with Orochimaru, that doesn't necessarily answer the question of where he learned Purple Lightning. Well, that explanation is a bit tougher, because, well, obviously the person who could have taught him Purple Lightning could have been Sasuke. It also could have been Kashin Koji, who saw Purple Lightning used against him when he fought Kakashi. And that fight in itself is also very interesting, because outside of the fact that Kashin Koji was able to deduce how Purple Lightning was used and therefore teach it to Boruto down the line, the context of that fight is also really important. See, for those of you who don't remember episode 211 of Boruto's anime, can't necessarily blame you. In this episode, Team 10 and Kakashi are hunting down Kashin Koji, who's infiltrated Konoha. Eventually, they're able to deduce the fact that the reason that Kashin Koji infiltrated Konoha is because he's trying to get information on ninjas of old. Specifically, ninjas that existed prior to the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. And thus, in order to get access to that information, Kashin Koji has to steal a scroll, because all ninja information gets digitized after the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. However, before Kashin Koji is able to get his hands on said scroll, Kakashi pops up and fights him. However, neither Kakashi or Kashin Koji are victorious in this battle, as Kashin Koji pretty immediately retreats. However, it's never established what ninja Kashin Koji was trying to do research on. Well, the safe bet here is that Kashin Koji was trying to get information on Jiraiya so he could figure out who he was and what his mission in life was. All of this is prior to Kashin Koji defeating Jigen. And thus at this point, Kashin Koji was much more contented with his life than he was post the defeat of Jigen. And thus there is a fair possibility that Kashin Koji was trying to get information on ninja who created very powerful jutsu, or just simply used them, like Minato or Tobirama. And this could be because Kashin Koji might have future sight, as Kashin Koji in chapter 12 of Two Blue Vortex knew what the Soul Thorn was, even though we've never heard of Kashin Koji battling another Shinju, let alone destroying one. And since Kashin Koji is a clone created by Amado of Jiraiya, there is a possibility that somehow the ability of the foresight dreams of the Great Toad Sage is spliced into Amado's DNA. And thus the real reason that Kashin Koji was breaking into Konoha libraries could be because he knew that somewhere down the line he was going to have to teach somebody Flying Raijin. But that theory is for a different video. And thus that still leaves us with the question, how did Boruto learn all these jutsu? And the simple answer is that it all leads back to Orochimaru. You see, I highly doubt that Kashin Koji would be the one to teach Boruto Purple Lightning. And while it could have been Sasuke, that doesn't answer the question of how Boruto learned Breakthrough. And while there is a possibility that Boruto learned Flying Raijin from a scroll that Kashin Koji stole, or from Edo Tensei Minato, there's also the possibility that the one person left on Earth who knew Minato better than anybody else, Kakashi, also broke it down to Boruto. And thus, I believe genuinely, the writing has been placed on the wall in the biggest possible font that's telling us from Kishimoto that Boruto's teachers during the time skip were none other than Sasuke, Kashin Koji, Orochimaru, and Kakashi. And while Sasuke may not be in the picture anymore, I do genuinely believe that Team Boruto includes Boruto, Kashin Koji, Orochimaru, and maybe Kakashi. He's the one I'm the most reticent about. But it's not like he's got anything more important to do right now. He's certainly not assuming the role of the 8th Hokage. And considering the fact that the strongest person in the village is supposed to be the Hokage, and he is much stronger than Shikamaru, kind of a big old question mark as to why he's not the 8th Hokage. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. Do you believe there's a reason that Boruto continually uses jutsus tied to other people, or do you think it's just Boruto getting stronger? Tell me in the comments below. And while it goes down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. I'm gonna go play Rainbow Six Siege.